This unit was meant for a second or third grade student as a research project. The project is a zoo guide that the students will create collaboratively with a partner using a blog. It covers the TEKS for the writing process and expository text, since the students must research local zoo animals for a zoo guide. The project also covers the research process TEKS. It covers the science TEKS that relate to animal basic needs and animal characteristics. The ISTE nets for students that were used were collaboration and communication, because my students had to use digital tools to work collaboratively with their partner, and they had to use good communication skills in order to complete their project. I also used research and information fluency nets because I wanted my students to use digital tools to gather, evaluate, and use information that was gathered for their research project. The relative advantage of doing this research project was that my students take a trip to the zoo each year, and we study animal needs and characteristics. I thought that they would enjoy creating a zoo guide that they could use to teach their fellow classmates about some of the zoo animals as we walk around and see these zoo animals. I originally wanted to use Wikispaces, but since the site did not work on my school's computers and tablets, I opted to use KidBlog instead. My students were familiar with KidBlog because they use it during one of their literacy stations daily. One skill that my students need to practice researching, which we did during the first week using a meerkat. I also knew that having to go through the steps of logging in to Britannica schools would be difficult, so I created a Nearpod lesson that could be used during the research days. I also needed to make sure that the iPads and laptops were plugged in at the end of each day. The objectives and assessments that I decided on were that I wanted my students to achieve an 80% on their research checklist. I wanted my students to score at least a 4 or 5 on a motivation and excitement Likert scale, and I also wanted them to evaluate their peers with a 4 or 5 on a peer evaluation Likert scale. When I designed the integration strategies, I knew that we only had 3 weeks to complete the research process. During the first week, I did an introductory lesson over the upcoming research project. The next 4 days, we did a whole group research project over meerkats to practice the research process. During the second week, my students used the Nearpod lesson I created to begin researching their zoo animals with their partner. They used a research guide with questions that they had to answer as they completed the research process. They wrote their notes on sticky notes and placed them in small sandwich bags. During the research process, I realized that if students did not log in to KidBlog under the same name each day, then they would not be able to edit their previous day's work. During the third week, I did an instructional lesson on how to organize sticky notes and how to use those sticky notes to write sentences. After the students wrote their sentences, then they had to find and upload pictures. They had a difficult time with this, so I had to do a mini lesson to show them how to find and upload pictures from the internet. After this lesson, then they were able to easily find and upload pictures of their zoo animals. Then they were asked to revise and edit their project, which proved difficult for most students. The final day, they were asked to complete the peer evaluations and attitude and excitement surveys. They really seemed to enjoy the research process.